because the Deathworlders had answered, and now nothing in the galaxy would be the same. For a while after Admiral Reyes's voice echoed across the galaxy, there was silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of waiting. Every listening post, every colony, every council hall leaned closer to their receivers, and then the stars themselves began to tremble. From the far edges of known space, the humans moved. First came reports from scouts, strange energy spikes at the border of the Orion Spur. Then came sightings, massive shadows tearing out of hyperspace. Soon the truth could not be denied. The human armada was gathering. Alien observers watched in awe as the fleet revealed itself. These were not the polished, delicate cruisers of the Council, with their elegant curves and bright colors. No, the human ships were built like blunt weapons, like mountains of steel given engines. Their hulls were dark, scarred by past battles. Their cannons so large they looked like towers. Carriers stretched for kilometers, bristling with fighters. Dreadnoughts loomed like floating fortresses, each one carrying enough firepower to level a continent. Around them swarmed destroyers and frigates, smaller but sharp, darting like wolves around their giant protectors. The sight shook the galaxy. Council fleets usually drifted in perfect formations, balanced and graceful. But the human armada did not drift. It marched. Every ship moved with discipline, every engine thundering in rhythm like soldiers stomping across the void. Wherever the human fleet appeared, comms lit up with their voices. Admirals, captains, soldiers, all speaking with a fire no translator could hide. This is the Terran United Navy. Stand firm, allies. Reinforcements are en route. Civilian convoys follow the marked routes. You are under our protection now. Enemy contact detected. Prepare to strike. For Earth. For the living. For many alien species, it was the first time hearing such voices in war. There was no panic in them, no hesitation. Only resolve, like stone refusing to break. On the colonies under siege, hope began to bloom. Refugees huddled in shelters, hearing the broadcast through emergency radios. Children stopped crying for a moment as their parents whispered, "The humans are coming." But in other corners of the galaxy, fear deepened. In the council chambers, some representatives whispered angrily, "They bring too many ships. This is not rescue. This is invasion. If they defeat the enemy, what will stop them from taking everything?" Yet even these voices were quiet compared to the louder truth. No one else had come. Only the Deathworlders answered. Admiral Reyes himself appeared again in a transmission broadcast to every ally fleet. His face was worn, his eyes heavy, but his voice was steady as iron. To the defenders of the galaxy, we do not come to rule. We do not come to claim. We come because we were asked. You called us, and humanity remembers its promises. Stand with us. Hold your lines. We will fight beside you. We will not retreat. We will not surrender. The word spread like fire. On dozens of worlds, alien soldiers straightened their backs. Captains adjusted their formations. Civilian leaders who had been ready to abandon entire populations now found strength to resist. And far away, the enemy stirred. They had burned through colonies easily before, their fleets sweeping aside defenders like dry leaves in a storm. But now their scouts reported a new resistance. They spoke of enormous fleets, of ships that did not fall when struck, of enemies that fought with madness and fury. And for the first time, the invaders hesitated, because the Deathworlders had come to the field. The sound of their engines rumbled through the void, like thunder rolling across endless skies. It was a warning to all who would bring only ruin. Humanity was here, and they did not come quietly. The enemy came fast. They were confident, perhaps even arrogant, because no one had stopped them before. Their ships fell upon the first human fleet like wolves upon prey. They came with numbers that blackened the stars, weapons flashing like storms of fire. But this time, the slaughter did not go their way. The humans had been waiting. The first battle began in the shadow of a dying colony. Smoke still rose from the burned world below as the enemy descended, expecting another easy kill. Instead, they found a wall of iron waiting for them. The United Terran fleet had taken position in high orbit. Carriers deployed swarms of fighters streaking through the void like burning sparks. Dreadnoughts opened fire, their cannons shaking the darkness with thunder. Smaller frigates darted in and out, striking like knives, drawing enemy ships into traps. The clash was violent beyond measure. The enemy's weapons tore into human hulls, ripping steel apart, but the humans did not retreat. They tightened formations, shielded one another, and fought back with terrifying will. Where one ship fell, another filled the gap. Where weapons failed, humans rammed. The comm channels burned with human voices. Hold the line. Push them back. For Earth, for the colonies, for our children, fire. No one else dies today. To the watching galaxy, it was a sight never seen before. The humans did not fight like the Council fleets, who valued preservation above all. They fought like beings who had lived their whole lives in storms and fire. Their rage was bound to discipline, their courage sharpened into strategy. And something strange began to happen. Alien ships, hesitant at first, slid into formation beside the humans. A Seleth cruiser, its captain trembling, aligned its shields with a Terran frigate. A Sharan battleship, battered and smoking, turned to follow the command of Admiral Reyes himself. One by one they joined the humans, their fear melting into courage. The humans did not reject them. They welcomed them with fire. Human commanders gave clear, fierce orders, drawing the allies into their formations, covering their flanks, teaching them how to fight with fury instead of retreat. Suddenly, the line did not look fragile anymore. It looked alive. For the first time, the enemy faltered. Their ships recoiled under the storm of combined fire. Their formations broke as human destroyers darted into their midst, tearing at their lines. A human carrier, even while burning, launched its last wave of fighters before exploding in light. The sacrifice broke the enemy's spearhead, scattering them into chaos. And through the smoke and wreckage, the humans pressed forward. Alien soldiers on the ground looked up to see the skies shift from despair to defiance. Refugees hiding in bunkers wept as the rumble of enemy bombardment faded, replaced by the thunder of human guns pushing the invaders back. It was not an easy victory. Hundreds of human ships were lost. Thousands of soldiers gave their lives. But the system still stood. The colony still breathed. For the first time since the invasion began, the enemy did not claim a world. Admiral Reyes's voice filled the channels once more, steady even as static hissed through the broken comms. We bleed, but we endure. We burn, but we rise again. The enemy thought us weak, but they have not faced Deathworlders before. Today we showed them. Today we remind the galaxy we do not fall. His words carried beyond the battlefield. Across the stars, whispers turned to belief. Species who had doubted now felt their hearts stir. The Deathworlders had not only fought, they had turned despair into hope. And far away, the enemy commanders listened in silence. For the first time, their forces had been stopped. For the first time, they wondered if their endless advance might not be endless after all. The galaxy held its breath, knowing this was only the beginning. The storm had broken. The Deathworlders were awake. The war did not end with the first victory. The enemy was vast, unyielding, and always brought more. Every battle won by the humans seemed to be followed by another, harsher storm. The galaxy soon realized this was not a single war. It was survival itself. Yet the humans did not break. They fought with a kind of stubborn fire that spread like a spark to all who stood beside them. Where others saw only hopeless numbers, humans saw another chance to fight, another chance to protect. The galaxy began to whisper stories. In the Vega system, a single human destroyer named Resolute faced an entire enemy squadron. Outnumbered and cornered, the captain refused to retreat. The crew fought until their weapons were gone, then rammed their ship straight into the enemy carrier. Both ships were lost, but the enemy fleet was broken. Refugee convoys escaped, carrying thousands of lives to safety. Survivors spoke of the captain's last words: "If we cannot live, then let us be the wall others stand upon." In another corner of space, a squad of human marines defended a nest of alien hatchlings. Their own transport had been destroyed. Ammunition ran low. The enemy pressed closer with every passing hour. Yet the humans refused to abandon the small, fragile young. They built barricades, fought hand to hand, and shielded the hatchlings with their own bodies. When rescue finally came, only a handful of Marines still breathed, bloodied but unbowed. Every hatchling lived. Even the smallest actions became legends. A human medic was seen dragging wounded allies, alien and human alike, through the fire of battle, refusing to leave anyone behind. A pilot guided a burning fighter into an enemy cruiser, sacrificing herself to save a fleet. A group of engineers worked until their last breath to keep a shield running long enough for an evacuation. These stories spread like light in the dark. Other species began to see what the word Deathworlder truly meant. It was not about destruction. It was about endurance. It was about standing when all logic said to fall. It was about choosing to suffer so that others did not have to. And in the clash of fire and blood, the Valari understood a truth they would never forget. Humanity did not run from darkness. Humanity became the light against it. The war for Valari Prime raged for many days. Every sunrise revealed new scars on the planet. Cities that once sang with music now burned in silence. The air smelled of smoke, metal, and blood. For every step forward, there was a price to be paid. The Deathworlders fought with everything they had, but they were not invincible. Their ships burned in orbit, drifting wrecks falling into the atmosphere like dying stars. On the ground, soldiers bled in the streets, their armor cracked, their bodies broken. The Valari watched in silence, hearts aching. These strangers from the stars were giving their lives for them. In the underground shelters, survivors gathered around the wounded humans. Valari hands, soft and untrained for war, carried water, wrapped bandages, and sang quiet songs. The humans, hardened by battle, lay still and listened. Some wept quietly, though they would not admit it. For them, kindness was rarer than victory. One soldier, Sergeant Cole, lay against a wall, his chest armor shattered. A Valari girl, no older than 12, pressed cloth against his wound. He looked at her with tired eyes. "You should hide," he whispered. The girl shook her head. "You came for us." "I will not run." Cole tried to smile, though pain made it weak. "You're braver than you know." In orbit, Admiral Rourke stood at the command deck of Iron Will. His face was grim as reports came in. A destroyer lost. 2 squadrons wiped out. Ground forces pinned in the southern sector. Every victory came with loss, and each loss was a weight on his heart. Commander Alvarez approached quietly. "Sir, we're losing too many." Rourke's jaw tightened. He did not look away from the burning world below. "We lose nothing if they live. Every Valari we save makes it worth the cost." His words were steady, but inside he felt the weight of every name, every life slipping away under his command. The Valari, once helpless, began to change. Hope stirred in their hearts. They could not fight with weapons, but they stood beside the humans in every other way. They carried ammunition, guided soldiers through the ruins, and risked their lives to warn of ambushes. For the first time in their history, the Valari were not only dreamers. They became partners in survival. Elder Sarava, watching the humans fight, felt tears on her wrinkled cheeks. "We thought strength was only claws or blades," she whispered. "But strength is this, standing for others even when the cost is unbearable." On the battlefield, Ensign Talia Voss returned to the sky in a repaired fighter. Her body ached, her hands shook, but her spirit burned. She led her squadron through the clouds, cutting down swarm ships that threatened to break through to the shelters. At one point, her craft took a hit, and she nearly spiraled into the ground. At the last moment, she steadied her hands and pulled back, her comms filled with cheers. "Voss is still with us."
"Stay in the fight, Talia."
The Valari who saw her streak across the sky began to call her the Sky Flame, a symbol of resilience that gave them courage. But courage could not erase the sorrow of sacrifice. At night, when the guns fell silent for a few hours, the Valari sang for the fallen. Their soft voices carried through the ruins, songs of mourning and gratitude. Human soldiers listened in silence, some bowing their heads, others closing their eyes to hide their tears. A Valari mother knelt beside a fallen human soldier and whispered, "You gave your life for a people you did not know. We will remember you as one of our own." And so grief bound the two species together. Grief and the fragile spark of hope that still remained. Admiral Rourke stood once more before his fleet. His voice carried strength, though his heart was heavy. "They needed us, and we came. We pay the cost, but we do not break. Humanity does not turn away from cries for help. Remember this, for the battle is not over." His words echoed through every ship, every soldier, every Valari ear that could hear them. And though the cost was great, the people of Valari Prime knew one truth: they were no longer alone. The final day began with fire. Valari Prime's sky was torn apart by burning ships, both human and swarm. The ground shook as bombardments rained from orbit. It seemed the planet itself was holding its breath, waiting to see who would survive. The swarm had grown desperate. Their forces poured in endless waves, clawing at the last defenses around the shelters. The humans, weary and bloodied, refused to yield. Every street became a wall of resistance. Every ruined building became a fortress. Admiral Rourke's voice cut through the chaos. "This is it. Hold your ground. Today we finish this." Sergeant Cole, still weak from his wounds, dragged himself back into the fight. His armor was cracked, but his spirit burned stronger than ever. The Valari girl who had once tended to him now stood nearby, guiding civilians to safety. Cole raised his rifle and fired into the swarm. He knew this was not just for survival. It was for her people, for the bond forged in fire. Ensign Talia Voss led her squadron through the skies one last time. Her fighters screamed through the clouds, tearing apart enemy swarms that threatened to breach the lines. The Valari cheered as her ship passed overhead, calling her name, lifting their voices with hope. In orbit, Iron Will was battered, but still unbroken. Human ships formed a wall of steel around Valari Prime. One by one, they ignited their last reserves of power, pushing back the enemy armada. Some ships did not return from their charges. They became blazing meteors, crashing into swarm carriers to take them down. Commander Alvarez looked to Admiral Rourke. "If this continues, sir, we'll have nothing left." Rourke's eyes never left the battlefield. "Then let it be written, we gave everything. Humanity does not answer with silence. We answer with fire." The Valari had never seen such fury. The swarm was stronger, faster, more numerous, but the humans fought as if death itself was only another enemy to defeat. They fought for strangers, for a people who had nothing to offer them but gratitude. In the heart of the southern sector, Elder Sarava raised her voice. The Valari gathered, not with weapons, but with courage. They blocked swarm paths with their bodies, threw stones, carried messages through the chaos. For the first time in their long history, the Valari did not simply endure. They resisted, and beside them the humans roared in defiance. Hours felt like years. The swarm faltered, but they still pressed forward. Then the moment came. From the edge of the system, new signals appeared on human scanners. Reinforcements, more human warships answering the distress call from across the stars. Dozens of vessels warped into orbit, weapons blazing. The armada had grown. The sky turned white with fire as the new fleet joined the battle. Swarm ships were torn apart, their formations shattered. On the ground, humans pushed forward, bayonets flashing, rifles burning through their last ammunition. The Valari raised their voices in a song of hope that shook even the fearless swarm. At last, the enemy broke. The swarm scattered, fleeing into the void. Valari Prime was scarred, but it still stood. Silence fell over the battlefield. Smoke rose into the sky. Bodies lay among ruins, both human and Valari, but the planet was free. Survivors held one another and wept, not only for the dead, but for the miracle of survival. Sergeant Cole leaned against a wall, too weak to stand. The Valari girl hugged him tightly, tears on her cheeks. "You stayed," she whispered. He closed his eyes and smiled faintly. "We always stay." Admiral Rourke stood on the bridge of Iron Will, watching the wounded planet below. He knew the cost had been terrible, but he also knew history would remember this day, not as the fall of Valari Prime, but as the day humanity showed the galaxy what it meant to fight for others. The Valari gathered in their surviving city squares. Elder Sarava stood before both her people and the humans who remained. Her voice carried like a prayer. "When we sent our cry into the stars, we expected pity. We expected small aid, perhaps a few supplies, perhaps a kind word before the darkness closed in. But what came to us was an armada of warriors, not for conquest, not for wealth, but for us, for strangers." She lifted her hands toward the humans, many wounded, many exhausted, yet unbroken. "The Deathworlders came, and in their fire we found hope." The Valari sang then, their voices rising high, a song not of mourning this time, but of gratitude. The humans stood silently, humbled, listening as an entire species gave them their hearts. And across the galaxy, stories spread. Aliens spoke of it in hushed tones, in wonder and disbelief. The Valari had expected aid, but the Deathworlders Armada had answered the SOS, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The galaxy had always been noisy. Ships moved, trade routes bustled, and voices of 100 species filled the channels. Some begged for trade, some demanded treaties, some sang songs of culture and unity. But once in a while, through the endless chatter, came a different kind of sound, an outcry for help. Most of the council worlds were used to it. A small colony under attack, a pirate raid on a distant station, a warlord trying to claim a poor system. The messages were usually the same: frantic words, desperate signals, promises of payment if someone came to defend them. And most of the time, the galaxy ignored them. Help was not free. Help was not safe, but this outcry was different. It did not come from one world. It came from many. Systems far apart all began to scream at once. Civilian beacons wailed, military codes shattered through channels, and the voices were trembling, heavy with despair. They are here. They are burning us. Nothing stops them. Please, please anyone. They do not speak. They do not take prisoners. We are falling. Help us. The cries spread across the stars like fire in dry grass. Every relay carried it. Every translation filled council chambers with echoes of panic. The recordings played again and again, until even the coldest of delegates felt their hearts tighten. The council chamber, usually a place of pride and diplomacy, fell into silence. Representatives of dozens of worlds sat frozen, their eyes wide. Some had claws that trembled against the polished table. Some covered their tendrils or frills, ashamed to show their fear. They had heard cries before, but never like this, because these attackers, whoever they were, did not answer to offers. They did not take spoils. They left only ruin. Whole cities went dark within hours. Fleets sent to defend them returned in pieces, their wreckage drifting cold in space. The fear was different this time. It was not the fear of pirates or warlords or rebels. It was the fear of something no one understood, something that could not be reasoned with. Whispers began to move across the chamber. What are they? Where do they come from? No one has seen their faces. No one has captured one alive. The questions piled, but answers were none. Only one truth became clear. If the attackers were not stopped, they would spread further, swallowing more and more systems. Yet when the time came to act, the council froze. Ships were counted. Numbers compared. Treaties read aloud. Excuses piled up. We cannot risk our fleets. We must defend our borders first. It is too far, too dangerous, too costly. Every species looked to another, hoping someone else would carry the burden, but no one moved. Fear had chained them all. And then among the frightened whispers, another word surfaced, a word many avoided speaking aloud. Deathworlders. The chamber fell even quieter. Everyone knew who that word pointed to. Humans. The strange newcomers who had entered the galactic stage not long ago. They came from a violent world, a place so dangerous it was called a death world by xenobiologists. To survive there was madness. To thrive there was impossible. Yet humans had climbed from their brutal cradle and reached the stars with ships of iron and fire. Most in the council distrusted them. Humans were seen as reckless, unpredictable, and frightening. They fought too hard even in peace. They smiled in places others wept. They joked in the face of war. And when they swore oaths, their words carried the weight of storms. But humans had once promised something. Not long ago, when first accepted into the galactic community, their leaders had stood in this very chamber. Their voices had been steady, their eyes burning with conviction. They had said, "We know we are feared. We know you do not trust us. But hear this, if ever a threat comes that none of you can face, call for us, and we will answer." It had sounded like bravado then, a wild boast from a dangerous species. Many had laughed. Others had shivered. Few had believed. Now as the outcry spread and no one dared move, the memory of that promise returned. Delegates shifted uneasily. Some shook their heads. Others whispered, "No, not them. We cannot unleash them." But the voices of the dying kept echoing. The cries grew sharper, filled with children's screams, with elders weeping, with soldiers shouting final words before static swallowed them. No one else was coming. At last, the council turned to the shadow of Earth. The message was sent, trembling through the void. To the humans, to the Deathworlders, "The galaxy calls you, please, answer." And then, for the first time in many long cycles, the chamber waited, not with pride, not with confidence, but with fear and fragile hope. When the message left the council chamber, it felt like throwing a stone into a black ocean. No one knew if there would be an answer or if silence would swallow their plea, but the very act of calling them, calling the Deathworlders, changed the air of the galaxy. Fear shifted. Unease spread, The name Deathworlders was not spoken lightly. To most species it carried both dread and awe, for to them, humans were not like anyone else. Humans came from Earth, a planet ranked among the most hostile worlds ever recorded. It was a world of storms that could shatter continents, of volcanoes that scarred the land, of predators with teeth like blades and poisons that killed in moments. Where most species would never survive a single cycle, humans had not only survived but thrived. To the gentle worlds of the Council, humans seemed impossible. They healed faster. They endured pain longer. They adapted to climates others could not imagine. Even their laughter seemed strange, because it often came in the middle of hardship, as if suffering was a familiar companion. So they were feared. From the first day humans joined the galactic community, warnings spread. Do not trust them. Do not arm them. Do not let them lead. They were too dangerous, too reckless. Many whispered that it was only a matter of time before humans turned their fury on the stars themselves. Yet at the same time, there was something undeniable about them. When they made promises, they carried them like chains of honor. When they stood as allies, they stood without breaking, and when they faced enemies, they did not surrender. It was this memory that now stirred inside every delegate who had sat frozen in the council chamber. They remembered that day years ago. When humans had been admitted after long debate, the chamber had been just as tense. Species had spoken for hours, voices raised, demanding restrictions. The human ambassador, a woman named Eleanor Kane, had risen at the end. Her voice had not been loud, but every word had struck like iron. We are not blind. We know you see us as dangerous. But hear this. Our history is filled with storms, and we survive them not alone, but together. If you ever face something greater than your strength, call us, and we will come. Not as rulers, not as conquerors, as allies. Most had dismissed those words as theater. Others laughed in private. A few felt a shiver but buried it quickly. Now those words returned with force because no one else was moving, and the cries for help were still echoing. The council message had been sent. It could not be undone. For days the galaxy held its breath. Traders whispered of it in docking bays. Soldiers spoke of it in their barracks. Civilians prayed to whatever gods they believed in, hoping the humans would not ignore the call. But hope was tangled with fear, because no one truly knew what it meant to unleash the Deathworlders. They had seen only glimpses. Small fleets, joint missions, human marines fighting side by side with aliens in border skirmishes. Even those small moments left lasting impressions. Humans bled and kept moving. Humans broke and still stood. Humans laughed in the face of death. If such beings now gathered their full strength, what would it look like? Could the galaxy even control it? Some whispered, what if they defeat the enemy? And then keep going? What if they decide we are weak and weak does not deserve to live? What if we have called our own doom? The fear was real, but so was the desperation. The outcry across the stars did not stop. Every cycle, more voices vanished into static. Every cycle, another world went dark. The enemy was spreading like a firestorm, and no one else could put it out. At last, on the fourth day after the council message, the silence broke. A transmission cut through the void, sharp and commanding, carrying in every tongue of the galaxy. It was a human voice, calm yet burning with restrained fire. This is Admiral Reyes of the United Terran Fleet. Your call has been received. To those who suffer, hold fast. To those who fear, do not despair. Humanity is on the move. We are coming! The words struck like thunder. Entire worlds stopped to listen. Some wept in relief. Others trembled, not sure whether to feel safer or more afraid.